Welcome to Get on the Ark. It's an honor to have Sheriff Mack here today. Sheriff, you were Graham County, Arizona Sheriff, and you were in law enforcement 20 years. You have an impeccable service record, and man, you've gone through. You took on the U.S. government the U.S. Supreme Court. Gave you a victory for the 10th Amendment, and it was actually a landmark case. And I know you've written books and you've on this journey, but welcome to the show, and I'd love to hear your story.
Well, thank you. And just so all of your listeners and supporters know, the highlighted version, after I spent a week studying my own case, I put the highlights in this little booklet. And it's very small. It fits right in your shirt pocket or your purse. And every American should have this book in their home. You can look up the case. You can look up Mack VUS or Prince VUS, who went with me to the Supreme Court, the sheriff from Montana. But the easy way to go is just go to our website at cspoa.org. They're 3 for $5. They're very inexpensive, but this is the most powerful book you can have with you, except for the Bible, the Pocket Constitution. This will be next. This is absolutely a miraculous work, and miracles don't come from me, and they don't come from the Supreme Court. Miracles come from God, and that this case is an absolute miracle. It is, folks, the most powerful 10th Amendment decision: state sovereignty, states' rights, local autonomy. It's the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of America, and you'll see what I mean by that. And I highly recommend that you order several of these and pass them around to local officials and anybody that's an activist for freedom. You need to show them this. And again, it was not me. I was part of the tools being used by the Lord to bring this about, but it was not my idea. It was somebody else's idea, much smarter and higher than I am.
Wow. Tell us the website again.
cspoa.org. And that stands for Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association. Now, everyone, we have was Citizens Posse, CSPOA Posse, CSPOA Posse. Yeah, that's the website. And everyone can join that as well. And every citizen should, so that we can train you and work with you on our posse to help you work with your sheriff's posse. And we still believe, no matter what, how thrilled we are that Trump got in, we still believe county by county is the best way to restore freedom in America. And we want all the sheriffs in this country to be working with the president, the new president, or president again, Trump, so that we can get the mass deportation done safely and effectively, and also to have his back. And that's what we propose at this time.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit how you got here. Like what?
Well, I wanted to get in the FBI, and thank the good Lord, fate took me a different direction, and I hired on with Provo Police Department in Utah. And I was working my way through college, and I got a part-time job as a meter maid, official term, parking enforcement cadet. And then I moved back to Arizona, where both my wife and I are from, and I ran for sheriff. And that was an absolute epiphany. We had no desire to do that. I had 11 and a half years on with Provo Police, and I didn't want to move. I was moving up really quickly, and I didn't want to come home and lose an election and be out of work. But my wife's parents were very constitutional, and they had a huge impact on converting me to the Constitution when I was a rookie cop. So I've done everything in law enforcement imaginable, except I've never shot anybody, and I've never beat anybody up. But I was a patrol officer for about 4.5, 5 years. I was a detective. I was an undercover narcotics agent, and every bit of that, a school resource officer, patrol sergeant, and then detective sergeant. And I've specialized as a detective in crimes against children, primarily because I was also a school resource officer, which all crimes relating to children were directed to me. And so I look back and I said, well, the training I got at Provo Police was just there to get me trained to run for sheriff. And the reason I ran for sheriff and got sheriff was to sue the federal government. And the thing that happened when I was a rookie cop, there was an announcement of a training seminar for law enforcement. It was ongoing training for certification, to keep your certification as a cop. And it was called the Constitution for Law Enforcement Officers. And I took off 2 days to go to that training seminar at the University of Utah. It was taught by Dr. W. Cleon Skousen, who's considered a world-renowned constitutional expert. And he was probably the best teacher I've ever had in my life. And on the second day, he was talking about the founding fathers, and he had a book called The Making of America. And that's really what we learned. We learned the making of America and how miraculous and inspired this country was to begin with, and how inspired the founding fathers were. And I took another oath. And this is all about, do we as police and public officials keep the oath of allegiance that we swear in God's name to the people that we work for and for the people we work for? And so why do we take that oath? Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution requires each of us in every branch of government to swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. The founding fathers expected that we would keep our word and that we would do just that, which means we would study and know and understand the Constitution. And it's not hard to understand, especially the Bill of Rights. And so one day I was writing a lady a ticket, and it hit me that she wasn't the one in the wrong. I was. And I was acting like a tax collector instead of a public servant. And it was at that time that I decided that I was going to know and understand why we have police and government. And that took me right to the smack in the face of the oath of office. And I took another oath right then and there that I would never be on the wrong side again. And that lady that brought that epiphany to me, that I almost gave a ticket to, that should not have got it, she ran the stop sign all right. But I was not dealing with her as a compassionate Christian. I was dealing with her as a by the numbers jerk. And I had to let that part of my career go and say, I'm going to really serve and help people instead of just attacking them and acting like a tax collector. So then when I ran for sheriff, I haven't even lived in Safford or Graham County for almost 12 years. And I walked back into town saying, make me your head law enforcement officer. And miraculously, and I mean miraculously, I was elected. And then I was re-elected in 1992. And in 1993, I saw President Bill Clinton on television. That was November of 93, sign into law the Brady Bill. And he used, for some reason, I still don't remember, I'll have to look it up. He used 13 pens. I don't know if that was a omen or a bad sign or what, or a bad number. I don't know. Friday the 13th, maybe was when he did. I don't know. But he used 13 pens. He was left-handed. And I didn't think much of it. But on January 21st, 1994, 3 agents of the BATF showed up at a meeting in Phoenix, Arizona with all the sheriffs. And they gave us a 25-page document detailing what we, the sheriffs of this country, had to do to enforce this Brady Bill gun control law for the federal government for free, without any negotiation, and with a threat of arrest if we failed to comply. Every sheriff was against it. Every sheriff was cussing like crazy. I wasn't. I don't usually cuss very much, and I don't throw F-bombs. And then, but they were being thrown that day. And sheriffs were really ticked. But at the end of the day, they all acquiesced, except for me. And I said, you guys already convinced me we should not be doing this. And this is gun control, and this is out of control, corrupt government. And I'm not going to work for them. In fact, none of us work for the federal government. They can't hire sheriffs. They can't fire sheriffs. And we are paid by the citizens of our county. And we are here to work for and defend and protect the citizens of our county, not the federal government. And so I said, this is gun control, and we none of us in here like gun control, and it's against the Constitution. So I had a 2.5-hour drive home after that, and I told the other sheriffs I wasn't going to do it. But I didn't know what I was going to do. How was I going to stop this? How was I going to not do it and not get arrested by the federal government, by the corrupt Clinton administration? And I didn't trust them at all. And so I was just kind of talking to myself and brooding all the way home. And I finally pulled up in my driveway, and it hit me right when I was getting out of my car. You're going to sue the federal government. You're going to sue your own government. And I go, and I was scared to death because I said, I'm supposed to sue the Clinton administration? Are you kidding? This is a David versus Goliath story if I ever heard one. And David usually only wins in the Bible.
Right.
This isn't real life thing, and then I kind of looked up and I go, there's no way this is going to happen, because the pretty little blonde girl I married a few years before this is not going to support this at all. And it was just the opposite. It was a very touching moment between my wife and me. I went in the house. I hadn't been home for a day and a half, and she came up to hug me, and I didn't hug her. I just blurted it out. I'm going to sue the federal government. I'm going to stop this Brady bill. They're trying to force me. They're arresting me. They want me to go along with the Clintons. I'm not going to do it. And I just told her all this fast stuff, and she goes, slow down. I'm sure you got something really important here to tell me, but I'm not understanding any of this. And so I took a deep breath and I told her what this was about. She goes, I really don't understand any of this, but I understand you. And maybe now we know why you were meant to be sheriff. And that really hit me. And I said, I'm going to take that as a yes. And she just shrugged her shoulders and went about getting the kids ready for bed, or I don't remember what she was doing. But I remember the feeling I got and the warm feeling inside I got that this was supposed to be. And this was totally out of character for her. She would have normally said, we got 5 kids. What are you doing? We look at all the blood, sweat, and tears we went through to get this job, and now you want to just throw it away. And so I went and spoke to a lawyer, a friend of mine downtown Safford on Main Street. He told me I was crazy. And he told me that there's no way that I would have the money to do anything like this. And he told me to go golfing and forget it. And I went kind of discouraged back to the office. And my undersheriff was a life member of the NRA. I was not a member. And I said, Mike, does the NRA have a toll-free number where you can call and get advice? He says, I've never called the number, but here it is. I called the number and I got passed around a whole bunch. Finally, I ended in the office of Richard Gardner, and he was a lawyer for the NRA. I told him who I was and what I wanted to do to sue the federal government to stop the Brady bill. And the next words out of his mouth changed my life forever. He said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. And I said, me? You don't even know me. I'm not even a member of the NRA. And he goes, we just needed a sheriff, and you're the first one to call. And I said, great, let's do it. And let's sue on the Second Amendment. He goes, we're not even suing on the Second Amendment. You have no standing on the Second Amendment. You're exempt from the Brady bill background. And I said, then what case are you preparing? What are we fighting on? He said, the 10th Amendment. The federal government has no authority to tell you or any other sheriff what to do. And it's a violation of the 10th Amendment. And I said, even better, let's go. And then I hired my own lawyer to work with the NRA lawyers. He used to work for the NRA. His name was Dave Hardy from Tucson. And on February 28th, the very day the Brady bill took effect, my lawyer with the NRA lawyers filed in federal district court in the courtroom of Judge John M. Roll, Mack, VUS. A couple of weeks later, Sheriff Prince from Montana joined the case, and then 5 other sheriffs from across the country joined, because this was aimed at all the sheriffs in all the country. And 7 of us ended up fighting this. 2 of us, Sheriff Prince from Montana and I, ended up at the Supreme Court in December of 1996. I had just lost my third election for Graham County Sheriff. And then 9 months after I lost the race, we won at the U.S. Supreme Court, June 27, 1997. And Justice Scalia wrote the decision for the majority. And every time I read the case or I go over this book, I am thrilled with how this was just an absolute miracle. The things that Scalia said were miraculous, and the case has never been changed or altered. And we're trying to get everyone in America, especially the sheriffs and all public officials and the citizens alike, to review this case so that we can keep the federal government in check where it belongs. And at one point, Scalia quotes the Federalist Papers several times. He does. And he said, quote, "Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. The different governments will control each other." So it's our job to keep the abuse of the federal government out, the abuse of federal and state bureaucrats out of the lives of our people, and that we put the Constitution first and our God-given rights first and our natural rights that we were born with when we became Americans. And actually all these rights are for everyone in the world. And freedom is a gift of God and is to be protected by all governments. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. How have we been doing on protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? We have got to get back to these fundamental principles. And I don't care who the president is. We have got to get back to these fundamental principles. It just so happens it appears that that's where Trump wants to go. And that's where we've been needing to go for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know what you see across the country, but I see there's a movement, going towards God and towards these fundamental principles. So, and you have an organization that you've created with sheriffs all over the United States, correct?
That is correct. We work with sheriffs and have been now since 2011, but it's all public officials. It's sheriffs, yes, but we want all public officials to realize that we've strayed far off our constitutional path and that we need to get back to that. But the ultimate authority in your county is your sheriff. And in this case, miraculously, Cleo is the term that they call us. Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Even in the Brady Bill, they call us, the sheriffs, the Cleos, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Who did the BATF bring those marching orders to? The sheriffs. Who did they bring them to all across this country? The sheriffs. And it called us the Cleos. So we have proof positive that it's documented that we are the Cleos and that we answer only to the people. The only supervisor your sheriff has are the people of his county. We, the people, the first three words of the Constitution, we are in charge of appointing or electing our public officials, and they answer to us. And that's why this is such a powerful position. We are the last line of defense for the people against tyranny, against oppression, and against corruption.
Yeah, absolutely. So from file to the decision, was it about 4 years?
It was 3.5 years. Yes.
3.5 years.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. That's an amazing story. God had his hand in it, and you've been married 49 years. So your wife
49.5 years to the same lady that told me to go ahead and do that. Yeah. But that's another miracle too. Just how I married her. How I met her. I mean,
how'd you meet her?
I should have never married her.
Yeah.
It was not my idea. I guarantee it was not my idea. She was way too young. And I asked her to dance at a church dance, and I had seen her during the day, and because I worked on the highway department, and we were fixing some roads, repairing some roads in her hometown. It was just 9 miles from Safford, and it was Pima, and Pima is so small. But I saw this beautiful blonde girl, and I made her stop. I borrowed the sign from the guy who actually did that. I wasn't even charged, but I made her stop just so I could check her out. That night at the dance, I asked her to dance, and I fell in love. I was already in love completely, 100%. I knew this girl was supposed to be my wife, and yet I found out later she was only 16 years old.
Wow.
And she was just starting her junior year in high school. I'm going, oh my God, somebody's wrong here. Somebody got a wrong signal. And then it turned out that now that I was in college, I kind of went away for a while, but my high school sweetheart married my wife's brother.
Wow.
And so now my high school sweetheart's going to be my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
So if anybody thinks I wanted to do that, oh my God, it was really hard.
Wow.
And so look, I totally was in love with my wife. I did not love my high school sweetheart, but we had lost complete touch with each other, and now she's part of my family.
Wow.
And there's just no way I would have ever married my wife, but she and her family were very instrumental in teaching me about the Constitution. They were very constitutionally oriented. The whole family was.
Wow. Well, so how did you propose to her?
Well, I went and talked to her dad, and I said, look, I know I should wait till she gets out of high school, but I'm going to be moving on to go to college myself and trying to get work and everything. And I said, I would like your permission to marry your daughter at the end of her junior year. And she'll be 17 and a half. And they were really nice about it. He says, we're not as concerned about when she gets married about as much as how she gets married. And we know you and your family, and we're happy that she found you. And so we got married, and we had kids right off, and I finished my college degree, and the rest is history. And I love my wife as much now as I ever did, or more than I ever did. And we get along great, and it's been an amazing year. And this coming May, we'll celebrate our 50th anniversary. And I praise God for every year and every day that I've been able to be with her.
Wow. Well, Sheriff Mack, thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. And what a great, I think I like the marriage story the best.
It was a miracle. But I guess I got to go. I got to get to another one. But let's get back together and talk more. Okay. I would love to discuss the case more with you and some of the other miracles in that. But it was all so miraculous. It all just fell into place. And some of it was just a few little things. But then there was a few times that the good Lord knocked me over the head and said, this is what you were called to do. And there is no question. I was called to do this lawsuit and move on to a national platform. I've written 8 books. And again, folks, this is the most important book. I didn't write this, but I compiled it. Right out from the United States Supreme Court, the most powerful 10th Amendment decision ever. Thanks so much for having me. I absolutely love your show, so I'd love to do it again.
Well, thank you, and God bless you.
See you soon.
See ya.